What if big tech isn't saving the world, but weakening the world? What if the platforms we trust, our data, attention, even our elections, are no longer accountable to the very system they created them? And Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir, who wrote this book called The Technological Republic, which I'm reading at the moment, believes we've reached a breaking point, a point where technology is advancing faster than our moral frameworks, and the democracy is losing ground to bureaucracy in silence. So, in his manifesto Technological Republic, Karp delivers a warning and a blueprint. So, across chapters 1 to 6, which I'm going to explore in the next few minutes, he says that the danger of Silicon Valley's culture is the rise of totalitarian AI and why the West must rediscover its will to uh, build. So this isn't just about AI, it's about the whole survival of us, our civilization as a humanity. So the choices we make now will decide our future and will decide whether we build a future worth defending or not. So let's talk about these things here. The first thing I want to talk about is the whole Silicon Valley, which is popular to kind of startup culture and startup factory, has been shifted from building products and startups which are around national purposes and national identities, which benefits the whole society, and it has a holistic approach for the whole civilians. Now it has been shifted to consumer apps and building consumer products. With AI, we can see a lot of people are just building and, building startups and building consumer-based apps, social media platforms, video sharing platforms. So this is what we are seeing now, which is not good. And there is no relationship between the state and the government and the startups. So there's no collaboration between startups and the state and the government. And there are few reasons and causes for this, which I'm going to explore in a few minutes. So just bear with me until the end. So Alex Karp here is presenting an argument which is the problem of no collaboration and trust between the state and the startups, which I mentioned before. But why it's happening? Like, what are the causes? There are a lot of causes which I'm going to mention here. The first one can be fear of punishment by the public, because people don't want to be judged in the public, specifically nowadays. The tolerance of sharing different views to the common view of the society is very rare among people because they don't want to be judged by others. So this is why usually startups try to stay out of the public sphere or public discussion. That's why we used to see few IPOs in the last few years during Biden's administration. Why? Because they need to be responsible when they make their startups or company public. They have to hold themselves accountable and responsible for their public stocks. They have chairman. The whole board needs to be responsible for a public company. Even I think Elon Musk wanted to make Tesla private again back in 2018. And one of the other reasons for this is because of the overregulation and the bureaucracy and the amount of internal works an entrepreneur or a startup founder needs to do to get things done compared to past. In the past, which I'm going to explore in a few minutes, it was so easy to get things done. And the third reason can be there is no internal value or belief to share with public in a common ground. even people doesn't have any value themselves. Like they don't have any core beliefs. They're neutral. And there is a reason behind that. So if we want to explore the history and we look at 20th century, the democratic regime had trust and credibility in relationship with engineers and scientists, and they allowed engineers to interfere politics and legislations. But nowadays, we just see lawyers or politicians without any engineering or science background running the country, and they're involving the state and the parliament here in the UK or other places. So what's happening here? Because there used to be a lot of involvement of tech engineers in politics. And you might say, really? Yes. Because I think when Donald Trump announced that Elon is going to be in cabinet regarding the Doge team, everyone was like, why a tech guy needs to be involved in government? But those people don't know history. It used to be like this. Before World War II, I think Einstein wrote a letter to President Roosevelt to let him know that they need to make an atomic bomb. Otherwise, Nazis and Germans are going to do so, and there's no mercy there. And that was the time that President Roosevelt, with his great relationship and close relationship to a scientist, aka Einstein at that time, tried to lead a project, and a military guy tried to, with of course Robert Oppenheimer, led to the Manhattan's project and the shaping of the atomic bomb and the age of atomic bomb, which was 20th century. So there was a close relationship between scientists and engineers and the state and the government at that time. Also, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, those were engineers in the first place. Their passion was engineering. Did you know that? Like Thomas Jefferson, I think, who studied writing machines, and Ben Franklin, who constructed lightning rods to eyeglasses. So those were engineers who went to politics after that. Why? Because they saw engineering as their passion and politics as their duty. If you just say, I want to be natural, I want to stay out of the politics, it doesn't work like that, because politics is your duty as an engineer or scientist if you want to hold yourself accountable and responsible for what you're trying to build in a society like in the USA or Western culture specifically I'm talking about. So this is the thing that I'm saying here. And many were polymaths, like they were focusing on interdisciplinary fields. Like nowadays we can just see tech people and those people who codes, with t-shirts behind the computer screen. Those tech guys nowadays, they don't study humanity or philosophy, or they don't think critically. It's just a productization of American minds or Western culture minds, that they focus on productivity, not philosophy or critical thinking or intellectual thinking. And this is the problem with the spirit of Silicon Valley. The engineering spirit of Silicon Valley is in danger, and they are just trying to produce and raise money. Like, as you can see, they're going from seed round, pre-seed, seed round, Series A, Series B, and the timeline is becoming shorter. They're raising a lot of money to just building consumer apps and satisfy the consumer. But someone like Alex Karp, who has built and founded Palantir, is trying to build something for national purposes. So the contracts are B2G. But others are trying to distance themselves from government, or I would say they used to do that during Biden's administration. But after Trump and after President Trump, we saw that someone like Sam Altman with OpenAI, Oracle, NVIDIA CEO Elon, they're trying to collaborate with the government, like a Stargate project, which was, I think, $500 billion project. So this is a shift that has been done after World War II, and it was decreasing by 2024, and now it's reviving itself. So now after President Trump, I think the American spirit and the engineering spirit of Silicon Valley is trying to go back on track. However, still they are building consumer app products. Like, they're not leveraging AI to the point that we can shape the future, the medicine, the agriculture, the infrastructure, and they're just building apps. And this is a waste of talents. So this is a problem we are facing here. And the bureaucracy was it used to be so low. Like I think the famous example is the release of Sputnik satellite by Soviet Union on October 1957. And US in response founded NASA in the following year. So such a quick response. If it was happening, I think today, maybe NASA is not going to be, fined like in the next 5 to 10 years because of over-regulation and internal works and paperwork we have to do. And it's worse here in the UK that I'm living. So the benefit of atomic age was it resulted in the longest lasting peace in history, but it had its side effects. One of the side effects is our younger generation has no experience of war in their lifetime. And you might say, wow, is it a bad thing? Like, it's a peaceful moment. No, it's not a bad thing, but it has its side effects. Why? Because they don't have any relevant understanding of the urgency of the national security and purposes. They just want to build startup after startup without having any national benefit. And this is one of the side effects. So this is one of the other problems we have. Also, they don't return the favor of their capitalist culture who allowed them the opportunity to be builders in the first place, because America and Western culture is one of the cultures that allow people to be builders. Specifically in America, there are a lot of opportunities. So you have to give something in return to the state and the society as a whole. But they forget that. Engineers, I'm saying like scientists and engineers nowadays, they forget to return the favor to the capitalist culture. And maybe this is why, like, there's no trust between government and the startup founders and entrepreneurs. And maybe this is why someone like Yuval Noah Harari mentioned that in his book called Nexus. Maybe we need a dictatorial regime might be better choice. Why? Because we have to make states and startups to work together somehow. And this is the thing here. And a lot of big corps, like I think OpenAI and Microsoft back in 2019 and 2020, I think they just said they don't want to have any B2G contracts, and they just want to distance themselves from the government. Why? Because they don't want to build tech that is weaponry. But this is not a moral thing. But people think that engineers nowadays think if they say they don't want to build something which is not weaponry, they're very moral or ethical people. It's not. They're just not holding themselves accountable and responsible for something bigger than just building for the sake of building. Like, this culture of building for the sake of building has been very common after Mark Zuckerberg, who famously said that building is a great thing. You know why? Because of the sake of building. There's no reason behind it, because we just love to build as entrepreneurs and founders. So we need to focus on building infrastructure, which US is focusing now, like AI data centers and big infrastructures, more than just building consumer app products to satisfy the customers. We can do both things at the same time. We can build something which serves the national purpose and identity and security. At the same time, it satisfies the customers, like B2C customers as well. So this is the point here. And US has a winner's, and US and the Western culture has a winner's delusion or fallacy. They think they have already won the AI race against autocracies like China and Russia, who weaponize AI for sure. And they have these kinds of delusions. However, the amount of investments that has been made from US GDP on defense has been 3 to 5% of the GDP, and in Europe has been 1 to 1.5%, which is very low. So this is very low. Like, even I think Europe is focusing on defense and spending less on defense, and they're relying too much in USA. Even I think President Obama famously said that when he was president, he said that Europeans need to pay their fair share, and now Donald Trump is saying the same thing. And some Democrats are saying, wow, why you're saying this? We're allies with NATO and Europeans. Of course, back in World War II, NATO was a linchpin of the Western culture. Nowadays, it's just some bunch of countries who are focusing and who are relying in the USA's military aid, which is not a good thing for UK or other European countries. So they have to be independent. They have to revive the Western culture and their defense military structures. If you want to talk about China, one of the rivals in AI, I think 2-3 days ago, Sam Altman said that China is close to US and they are just behind the US in the AI race. We don't know, because they are definite pessimists. They're always ready for the bad things to happen. So they have plans. And it's actually a bad thing to choose cynicism over patriotism. It's a risk of losing everything. But anyway, Xi Jinping, so the Prime Minister of China,
我在北京
or I have to say the leader of China, born 4 years after Communist Revolution of China, and people concluded that China needed constitutionalism and a rule of law, some kind of democratic principles. But Xi Jinping disagreed. He believed China really needed centralized control, something like Leviathan, an all-powerful state that maintains order through authority and force. So why he has decided this? Because she has a realist understanding of power and survival in global politics and geopolitics, versus the Western culture, who often see themselves as having won the game because of the liberal democracy. But it's not. You have to have the leverage if you want to do negotiation. Look at President Trump, what he is doing with tariffs on Europe and China, because he's leveraging tariff to make a good deal for his country. The same thing should be done for other countries as well. Imagine if USA didn't have atomic bomb and didn't show what atomic bomb can do in Hiroshima and Nagasaki back in World War II. There wasn't any peace after that, or no negotiation or end to the war after that. This time, we have to have the power of AI to be able to negotiate internationally and globally. However, we might not test the power of AI this time, because there might not be any, way back. Maybe like this is so powerful that we can not reverse the power of AI. So we have to be careful this time, because the age of atomic bomb is being finished, and 21st century is the software century, and we have to focus here. So this is the argument that we are presenting here, and Palantir and the Alex Karp philosophy is we need Manhattan 2.0 project for AI, and we have to be able to speak our beliefs. We have to have our core values to win the AI revolution. We shouldn't have fake democracy and be afraid of judgment. I think one of the people, the guy who, I think Charlie Munger or Charlie, who is going to different universities and doing debates, he's doing a great job. You know why? Because he's trying to say that debate is normal. We have to be tolerant. Like the post-modernization and secularization has led to agnostic beliefs and agnostic entrepreneurs. regarding religion, which is good because someone like Freud has viewed religion as sort of obsessive impulse. Or the German physicist, I think Max Planck, who founded quantum computing, used to say a new scientific truth doesn't rise by convincing its opponents, rather because its opponents die. And this idea regards, with longevity and ossification of society, as Elon Musk said. So tolerance of everything has led to support of nothing. So it's an agnostic culture. So this postmodernization has shifted the culture and the spirit of Silicon Valley once again. What should we do? We have to shift our view. We have to collaborate with the state. We have to trust the government, and the government needs to reduce the overregulation and bureaucracy. And of course, in the Western culture, they should invest more in startups. But the amount that they invest in startups is so low nowadays in the UK and Western culture. It's very hard to raise money here compared to the USA. So they need to increase their amounts of investments. They need to reduce the overregulation and bureaucracy. They need to welcome other people. They need to welcome engineers and scientists into politics as their duty. They need to provide opportunities, and engineers and scientists need to hold themselves accountable and responsible for what they're building. And they have to build something which serves the national purposes, national identity, and national security, not just consumer-based apps and social media and video sharing platforms. This is the takeaway. Do you trust big tech to safeguard our freedom, or is it time to build something new? Make sure that you leave a comment on this one and share your ideas. So this was the part 2 episode 5 of Agile with Arshia podcast. We're living through the biggest tech AI revolution in history. Don't just observe it, be part of it. Subscribe my YouTube channel. Also follow me on Instagram to stay ahead.